Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive with us.
Always fun to dig into a new book.
Right, and this one really caught my eye. It's Think Like an Entrepreneur, Act Like a CEO by Beverly Jones.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that one. What do you think?
Honestly, it's kind of changed how I view my whole career. It's like a light bulb moment, you know?
Well, she's definitely got the creds to back it up. I mean, lawyer, Fortune 500 executive career coach. That's quite a resume.
Yeah, no kidding. It's not just some ivory tower theory. It feels like real-world wisdom.
And the timing is perfect. So many people feeling stuck in their careers or just unsure about the future.
That's exactly it. It's like Jones is saying, you don't have to wait for permission to take control. You can be entrepreneurial right where you are.
I love that. And it's so empowering. You know, you don't have to quit your job and start a risky business.
Totally. You can be an entrepreneur, Jones calls it. Like tap into that entrepreneurial energy, but within your existing company.
Makes a ton of sense, especially these days. Companies change so fast, loyalty isn't always enough anymore.
Right? It's like you could be the most dedicated employee ever, but if your skills aren't evolving...
You gotta stay ahead of the curve. Adaptability, resilience. Those are the magic words now.
So are we saying this is the secret to getting ahead? Like, not just surviving, but actually thriving in your career?
It's definitely a piece of the puzzle. It's about showing initiative, taking ownership, being the problem solver, not the problem.
I can see that being super valuable to any boss. Like, you're not just doing your job.
Yeah.
You're thinking ahead, anticipating needs.
It's like being a mini CEO of your own little domain, even if it's just your desk.
This is making me rethink my whole approach.
Yeah.
But let's get tactical here. Jones talks about thinking like an entrepreneur. What does that look like in practice?
One thing she emphasizes is understanding your customer. Even if you don't literally sell a product, who are you serving within the company? What are their needs?
Ooh, that's a good one. It's like shifting your perspective. Instead of just churning out tasks, you're thinking about the bigger picture.
And it can make your work so much more meaningful, too. You're not just a cog in the machine, you're contributing to something bigger.
I like that. Okay, so we're all entrepreneurs now thinking about our customers. But Jones takes it a step further with personal branding. That always makes me a little cringy.
Yeah, it can feel kind of like self-promotion overload. But Jones's approach is more down to earth. It's about the impression you make, how you present yourself.
So it's not just about having a fancy LinkedIn profile.
Right. It's about your communication style, your attitude, how you handle pressure, even how you dress.
Okay, now I'm getting nervous.
Jones tells this story about Sally, a project manager who was super talented, but her personal style and nonstop hobby talk were holding her back.
Ouch. It's like a wake-up call.
Yeah.
We all have blind spots.
It's a good reminder to do a self-assessment. You know, what's my vibe at work? How am I perceived?
I think that's a key takeaway for our listeners. Take a moment to think about your personal brand. What are your strengths? What might need a little polishing?
It's like anything else you want to improve, you got to be honest with yourself first.
And speaking of perception, Jones goes deep on the power of listening, but not just the passive kind.
She's talking about active listening as a skill, a tool even.
This is where I get self-conscious. I'm a good listener sometimes, but sometimes my mind wanders. You know?
It happens to the best of us, but Jones cites research that people can sense when you're really present versus just waiting for your turn to talk.
Oh, I've definitely been on the receiving end of that. It feels so dismissive.
But here's the crazy part. Jones connects this to charisma. Good listeners are often perceived as more charismatic.
Really? Now that's a game changer.
It's about making people feel seen and heard. That's powerful.
This is making me rethink how I approach every meeting, every conversation even.
It's like a secret weapon to build relationships and influence outcomes.
I'm sold. But before we all become Zen masters of listening, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back with more from Think Like an Entrepreneur Act, like a CEO.
We'll dive into some even juicier stuff. Don't go away. All right, so where were we? Oh yeah, Jones had some really interesting thoughts on communication, and it's not just about being a good listener.
There's always room for improvement, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I have some annoying speech habits.
Well, Jones actually talks about that. She says we all have these little verbal tics that can undermine our message.
Okay, like what? Give me an example.
She mentions uptalk, you know, ending your sentences with a rising inflection, like you're asking a question even when you're not.
Oh yeah, I hate that. And the overuse of like every other word is like...
It can be distracting, right? It makes you sound less confident, less authoritative.
So how do we break these bad habits?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not even aware of them half the time.
Jones suggests enlisting a friend or colleague to point them out, or even recording yourself speaking and listening back. It can be brutal, but eye-opening.
That's a great idea. I'm going to try that. But what about the other side of communication? How do we get better at receiving feedback?
That's a whole other challenge. Jones says we need to get better at accepting compliments.
Wait, really? That's a thing.
Apparently, so many people deflect compliments or downplay their achievements.
I'm totally guilty of that. It feels awkward sometimes.
Jones explains that our brains actually process compliments like rewards. So when we reject them, we're denying ourselves that positive reinforcement.
That's fascinating. I never thought of it that way.
So next time someone praises your work, try just saying thank you and really absorbing that positive feedback.
Okay, challenge accepted. But what about when the feedback isn't so positive? How do we handle criticism without getting defensive?
Jones says it's all about perspective. First, try to detach your emotions from the feedback. It's not a personal attack, it's information.
Easier said than done, but I get what she's saying.
Then focus on the specific points being raised. Can you learn something from this criticism, even if it's not delivered in the most tactful way?
It's like separating the message from the messenger.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to agree with every piece of criticism. Just take what's useful and leave the rest.
Okay, that's helpful. But let's shift gears a bit. Jones also talks about stress and its impact on our careers.
Stress is the silent killer, right? It can sabotage our productivity, our creativity, even our health.
So how do we keep it from taking over?
Jones emphasizes self-awareness, recognizing the early signs of stress before it becomes a major problem.
So, like, what are we talking? Heart palpitations and insomnia?
It can manifest in different ways.
Yeah.
For some, it's irritability. For others, it's withdrawal or even physical symptoms like headaches or fatigue.
Okay, so we know we're stressed. Now what?
Jones talks about the importance of stress management techniques. That can be anything from exercise to meditation to spending time in nature.
A good old self-care routine.
It's not just a luxury. It's essential for maintaining your well-being and performing at your best.
I think a lot of people struggle with that,
Yeah.
especially in a work culture that glorifies being busy all the time.
It's like a badge of honor to be stressed out. But Jones is saying that's not sustainable. You need to prioritize your health, both mental and physical.
And that can actually make you more productive in the long run.
Exactly. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Love that analogy. But sometimes it feels like the work itself is the main source of stress, like a toxic boss or a soul-crushing job.
Jones acknowledges that some work environments are just plain unhealthy. And she says in those cases, you might need to make a tough decision.
Like quit.
It might be the healthiest choice. But even if you can't leave right away, Jones offers some strategies for coping with a difficult workplace.
Give me the survival guide.
One thing she emphasizes is setting boundaries. Don't let work bleed into every aspect of your life. Protect your time and your energy.
That's so important. It's easy to feel like you're always on.
She also suggests finding allies at work, people you can confide and vent to support each other.
Having that support system can make a huge difference.
It's like having a life raft in a stormy sea.
Okay, I'm feeling more equipped to handle the work stress now. But what about the bigger picture? Jones talks about community and its role in career success.
She's a big believer in community, both within and outside of work. She says it's essential for support, inspiration, even accountability.
I can see that, especially for entrepreneurs or anyone working independently.
It can get lonely, right? You need people to bounce ideas off of, celebrate wins with, commiserate with.
So where do we find these magical communities?
Jones says start by looking at your existing network, your colleagues, your alumni group, even your online communities.
Okay, so it's not about joining a million new groups. It's about deepening the connections you already have.
Exactly. And then branch out. Explore communities that align with your interests or your career goals.
It's like expanding your circle of influence.
Jones also talks about the power of mentoring, both giving and receiving guidance from others.
I've had some amazing mentors in my career, people who really helped me navigate the ups and downs.
She encourages finding mentors who are a few steps ahead of you in their career path, people who can offer insights and advice.
But it's not just about taking advice. It's about building a reciprocal relationship.
Right. It's about sharing your own knowledge and experience, helping others grow.
It's like paying it forward.
And Jones says don't underestimate the value of mentoring someone who's just starting out. You can learn a lot from their fresh perspective.
I love that. It's a win-win.
This whole conversation about community and mentorship makes me think about the importance of building a strong network.
Networking always feels so forced, though, like I'm just collecting business cards.
Jones says it doesn't have to be transactional. It's about building genuine relationships, connecting with people who share your interests.
So, like, how do we do that without feeling sleazy?
She suggests attending industry events, volunteering, joining professional organizations. It's about putting yourself out there and being open to new connections.
And following up afterward.
Right?
Don't just let those connections fizzle out.
Right. Stay in touch, offer to help out, be genuinely interested in what others are doing.
It's like building a web of support and inspiration.
And Jones says a strong network can open doors to opportunities you might never have discovered on your own.
It's like having a secret weapon in your career arsenal.
Okay, so we've talked about building a community, finding mentors, networking. But what about those times when we're flying solo, leading a project or initiative?
Right? How do we take charge and make things happen when we don't have formal authority?
Jones uses the analogy of herding cats. It's like trying to get a bunch of independent-minded creatures to move in the same direction.
That sounds about right.
So how do we do it? She emphasizes clarity of purpose, make sure everyone understands the goals and the why behind the what.
It's like setting the compass.
Then break down big goals into smaller, achievable tasks. Delegate responsibility, empower people to take ownership.
It's about giving people a sense of agency.
And don't forget to celebrate wins, big and small. Keep the momentum going. Keep people motivated.
Okay, that's a great framework. But let's talk about something a little more tactical. Meetings. How do we make them less soul-crushing?
Meetings, the bane of our existence. But Jones has some surprisingly insightful tips.
I'm all ears because most meetings are a colossal waste of time.
First rule, she says, be clear about the purpose. Why are we here? What do we need to accomplish?
It's like having a mission statement for your meeting.
Exactly. And communicate that purpose to everyone beforehand so they come prepared.
No more of those aimless brainstorming sessions.
And here's a tip I love. Keep meetings short and focused. Don't let them drag on. Respect everyone's time.
It's like the attention span of a goldfish these days.
Jones also suggests assigning roles. Have a facilitator, a note-taker, someone to keep things on track.
Okay, that's a good way to ensure everyone's engaged.
And most importantly, end with clear action items. Who's doing what by when?
It's about turning talk into action.
This is making me want to revamp my whole meeting strategy. But let's shift gears again and talk about something more personal, finding joy and meaning in our work.
Is that even possible in today's hustle culture? It feels like we're all just chasing the next promotion, the next paycheck.
Jones believes it is possible, and she brings in insights from Carrie Hannon, who's written extensively about career happiness.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the secret formula?
Hannon says it starts with identifying your passions and aligning your work with your values.
That sounds lovely in theory. But what if my passion is underwater basket weaving and my job is data entry?
It's not always about a complete career overhaul. It might be about finding ways to infuse your passions into your current work.
So, like side projects, volunteer work.
It could be something as simple as decorating your workspace with things that inspire you, or taking on a project that aligns with your interests.
Okay, that's doable. It's about finding those little pockets of joy.
And Jones says don't underestimate the power of a positive attitude. Gratitude can go a long way.
It's like choosing to focus on the good stuff even when things are tough.
And sometimes that simple shift in perspective can make all the difference.
I'm feeling more optimistic already. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, social media. It's a necessary evil these days, right?
Jones says it can be a powerful tool for career advancement, but you have to use it strategically.
So no more mindless scrolling through cat videos.
Well, a few cat videos are allowed, but Jones emphasizes building a professional online presence. Start with LinkedIn. Make sure your profile's up to date and showcases your skills.
I'm guilty of neglecting my LinkedIn. It's like my online resume just gathering dust.
Jones also suggests using social media to stay informed about your industry. Follow thought leaders' companies' publications.
It's like a constant stream of knowledge and inspiration.
And don't be afraid to engage. Share your thoughts, comment on articles, participate in discussions.
But always be mindful of your online persona, right? What you post online can come back to haunt you.
It's all part of your personal brand, remember.
Right. No drunken karaoke photos.
Unless you're a karaoke instructor, maybe. But seriously, Jones says your online presence is an extension of your professional reputation. So be mindful, curate it thoughtfully.
It's like your digital first impression.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. From personal branding to communication to stress management to social media. It's a lot to process.
I'm feeling inspired, but also a little overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It's like I need a checklist to keep track of it all.
Well, Jones actually talks about the power of checklists. She says they're not just for grocery shopping. They can be a valuable tool for improving productivity and avoiding costly mistakes.
Really? I never thought of using checklists for work.
Jones shares examples of how checklists are used in high-stakes fields like aviation and surgery.
Oh, wow. That makes sense.
Oh.
Those are life or death situations.
But Jones says the same principles apply to any field checklist. Help us stay focused, follow procedures, avoid errors.
So we should be creating checklists for everything.
Not necessarily, but Jones suggests using checklists for important tasks, complex projects, or anything with multiple steps.
It's like having a roadmap to guide you through the process.
Exactly, and checklists can be a great way to delegate tasks, too. You can make sure nothing falls through the cracks.
Okay, I'm sold on checklists. But let's talk about something a little less structured. Jones also talks about the importance of intuition and gut feelings.
I love that, because sometimes you just have a hunch about something, It's not always logical.
Jones says don't discount those intuitive insights. She calls it your inner GPS.
It's like that little voice inside that says, go for it, or run for the hills.
But she also cautions against letting intuition completely override logic and reason.
It's about finding the balance, right?
Exactly. It's about using your head and your heart.
This is making me rethink how I approach decision-making. But let's circle back to something we touched on earlier, leading without formal authority. That herding cats analogy is so relatable.
Jones offers some additional tips for navigating those situations.
Give me the wisdom.
She emphasizes the importance of building relationships with the people you're trying to influence.
It's about connecting on a human level.
And she suggests finding ways to appeal to their self-interest. How can you frame your ideas in a way that benefits them?
It's like finding the win-win. And don't underestimate the power of persuasion. Jones says, be clear, articulate your vision, paint a compelling picture.
It's about being a storyteller.
And be persistent. Don't give up at the first sign of resistance.
It's like water wearing down a rock.
Jones also talks about the importance of staying positive and enthusiastic, even when you're facing challenges.
It's like your energy is contagious.
So lead by example. Show your team that you believe in what you're doing, and they're more likely to follow suit.
I'm getting fired up just thinking about it.
But let's not forget about the importance of self-care. Jones says you can't lead effectively if you're burned out and exhausted.
True. You got to take care of yourself first.
She emphasizes the importance of setting boundaries, prioritizing your well-being, and making time for activities that recharge you.
It's about filling your own cup so you can pour into others.
Okay, we've talked a lot about leadership and influence, but what about when we're on the receiving end of feedback? How do we handle praise and criticism gracefully?
That's a delicate balance.
Jones says, first rule, don't let it go to your head. Whether it's praise or criticism, stay grounded.
It's like keeping your ego in check.
She suggests using praise as an opportunity to acknowledge your accomplishments and reaffirm your commitment to your goals.
It's like fuel to keep you going.
And use criticism as an opportunity to learn and grow.
Easier said than done. Sometimes it stings.
She suggests seeking feedback from trusted sources, people who know you well and have your best interests at heart.
It's about filtering out the noise and focusing on constructive criticism.
And remember, you don't have to agree with every piece of criticism. Just take what's useful and leave the rest.
Okay, that's helpful. But let's talk about something a little lighter. Jones has some great insights on the importance of good manners in the workplace.
It seems so basic, right? But good manners can make a huge difference in how you're perceived.
It's like the little things that add up to a big impression.
Jones emphasizes being punctual, respectful of others' time, mindful of your language.
It's about being considerate and professional.
She also talks about the art of apologizing, when to do it and when to stand your ground.
That's a tricky one.
She says if you've made a mistake, acknowledge it, apologize sincerely, and take steps to make amends.
It's about taking ownership.
But don't over-apologize. She says it can undermine your authority.
So strike a balance.
Right, exactly. Now let's revisit the 80-20 rule, which Jones applies to time management and productivity.
Oh yeah, that's a game changer.
She suggests identifying the 20% of your activities that produce 80% of your results.
It's about focusing on what really matters.
And delegate, automate, or eliminate the less important 80%.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
She also encourages you to identify your strengths and focus on areas where you excel.
It's about playing to your strengths.
And be mindful of the people you spend your time with. Surround yourself with people who energize and inspire you.
It's about building a positive and supportive network.
Now let's talk about one of my favorite topics, goal setting. Jones is a big believer in setting audacious goals.
I love that. It's so easy to limit ourselves.
She says, think big, dream big, set goals that scare you a little.
But how do we make sure those goals don't just stay dreams?
She emphasizes making goals measurable, set specific targets and timelines, track your progress.
It's about creating a roadmap for success.
And break down large goals into smaller steps. Celebrate your wins along the way.
It's about making the journey enjoyable.
Jones also talks about the importance of visualizing your success. See yourself achieving your goals, feel the emotions associated with that success.
It's like creating a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And she encourages you to act as if you already have the qualities you need to succeed.
It's about stepping into the role you aspire to.
And don't be afraid to ask for help. Surround yourself with people who support your goals and can offer guidance along the way.
It's about building a team of cheerleaders.
Now let's talk about something that can be a major obstacle to success. Hesitation. Jones sees this a lot, especially among women.
I'm definitely guilty of that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I overthink things and talk myself out of opportunities.
Jones encourages you to notice your hesitation and find ways to adjust your behavior. Push yourself outside your comfort zone.
It's about taking risks and embracing the unknown.
She suggests paying attention to your language. Replace self-deprecating phrases like, "I'm not sure," with more assertive language like, "I recommend."
It's about projecting confidence.
And stop apologizing unnecessarily. She says it can undermine your authority.
So own your worth and your expertise,
Now let's talk about ageism. It's a real issue in the workplace.
especially as we get older. It's like we become invisible.
Jones acknowledges that ageism is rampant, but she also believes we can take steps to mitigate its impact.
I'm all ears.
She emphasizes staying tech-savvy, keep your skills current, embrace new technologies,
It's about staying relevant.
and highlight your experience. Frame it as an asset. Showcase the wisdom and perspective you bring to the table.
It's about reframing the narrative.
And build a diverse network of contacts. Connect with people of all ages and backgrounds.
It's about staying open to new ideas and opportunities.
And avoid bringing up age in conversations. Let your work speak for itself. Don't let age define you.
It's about owning your age, but not letting it limit you.
Now let's talk about change. It's constant in today's workplace.
How do we navigate it without losing our minds?
Jones shares some insights from Andrea Wilkinson, one of her former mentees, who successfully navigated several career transitions.
It's like she's a master of reinvention.
Wilkinson emphasizes focusing on the big picture. Stay informed about industry trends, understand your boss's goals, build a strong network, and find sources of stability outside of work.
It's about having a solid foundation.
Now let's revisit the topic of art and its role in boosting creativity at work.
I love this idea. It's like a breath of fresh air.
Jones draws on insights from Mary Foresta, who believes that art can actually train our brains for better innovation.
So it's not just a nice break. It's actually making us better employees.
Foresta talks about creative culture in the workplace. It's not just about beanbag chairs and ping pong tables. It's about fostering an environment where people feel safe to take risks with ideas.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're terrified of your boss shooting down every suggestion, you're not going to be very creative.
And Foresta is a big believer in the power of slow looking.
That's like really taking the time to observe and appreciate a piece of art, right?
Exactly. And she says that mindfulness, that attention to detail, can translate to your work.
So we're training our brains to see things differently.
But let's be real, sometimes the most creative thing you can do is leave your current job.
Okay, time for a career change.
Jones offers some guidance on how to make that exit gracefully.
It's like ending a relationship on good terms.
She shares the story of Bill, a lawyer who left his firm on good terms. He made a point of thanking his colleagues, expressing appreciation, and framing his departure in a positive light.
It's about leaving a good, lasting impression.
And she emphasizes the importance of giving adequate notice, completing outstanding tasks, leaving things in order for your colleagues.
It's about being respectful and responsible.
She also suggests writing thank you notes to key people, offering to help with the transition, and staying in touch with those you want to maintain relationships with.
It's about building bridges, not burning them.
And she advises against using your departure as an opportunity to air grievances or complain.
It's about focusing on the positive.
Now let's talk about optimism. Jones is a firm believer that an optimistic outlook can improve our chances of success and boost our well-being.
I'm all about positive thinking.
She shares a personal anecdote about struggling with negative self-talk during law school and how she actively worked to cultivate a more optimistic outlook.
It's like rewiring your brain.
She encourages you to identify your negative thought patterns and reframe them into more positive statements.
It's about choosing to see the glass half full.
And practice gratitude. Focus on the good things in your life. Surround yourself with positive people.
It's about creating a positive feedback loop.
And she recommends seeking professional help if you're struggling with chronic negativity or depression.
It's okay to ask for help.
And finally, she emphasizes the importance of simply choosing to be optimistic. recognizing that we have the power to choose our thoughts and attitudes.
It's about taking control of your mindset.
Now let's talk about time management. Jones has some great insights on how to be more strategic with our time.
Time is our most valuable resource, right?
She emphasizes understanding your own rhythms and energy levels, paying attention to your body clock, and scheduling your most challenging tasks for the times of day when you feel most alert.
It's about working with your natural rhythms.
And use your calendar, strategically block out time for specific activities. Be mindful of how you commit your time to others.
It's about taking control of your schedule.
She even suggests using different colors or categories on your calendar to visually represent different types of activities.
That's a great visual aid.
And Jones emphasizes aligning your time with your priorities.
It's about making sure your actions are aligned with your goals.
She suggests regularly reviewing your calendar and asking yourself whether the way you're spending your time is consistent with your goals and values.
It's about making conscious choices.
Now let's talk about how to get your boss to actually listen to you.
That's a skill in itself.
Jones emphasizes being clear and concise, respecting your boss's time, and understanding their communication preferences.
It's about being strategic.
She suggests preparing in advance, having a clear agenda, being able to articulate your points succinctly, and paying attention to nonverbal cues.
It's about being mindful of how you come across.
Now let's talk about leading without formal authority.
That herding cat scenario again.
Jones emphasizes building relationships, understanding people's motivations, and finding ways to inspire and influence them.
It's about soft power, not brute force.
Exactly. She suggests focusing on shared goals, creating a sense of ownership, and recognizing and celebrating contributions.
It's about creating a collaborative environment.
Now let's revisit career goals. Jones encourages you to think bigger and set goals that inspire you.
Aim high, right?
She emphasizes identifying goals that align with your values and passions and acting as if you already possess the qualities you need to succeed.
It's about aligning your actions with your aspirations.
She emphasizes making goals measurable, setting specific targets and timelines, and tracking your progress.
It's about holding yourself accountable.
She also suggests breaking down large goals into smaller steps and celebrating your wins along the way.
It's about making the journey enjoyable.
Now let's talk about checklists. Jones is a big advocate for using checklists to improve productivity and avoid mistakes.
Checklists can be lifesavers.
She shares examples of how checklists are used in high-stakes professions like aviation and surgery to prevent catastrophic errors.
It's about minimizing risk.
She encourages you to create checklists for your own work, whether for routine tasks, important projects, or challenging conversations.
It's about creating systems that work.
Now let's talk about the feeling of exhaustion we sometimes get after completing a big project.
That's like a post-adrenaline slump.
She calls it big project letdown and acknowledges that it's normal to feel a sense of anticlimax or sadness.
It's like the party's over.
She suggests taking time to celebrate accomplishments, giving yourself permission to rest, and planning ahead for the post-project phase.
It's about recharging your batteries.
Now let's revisit that herding cats analogy. Jones offers some additional tips for leading without formal authority.
Those cats could be tricky.
She emphasizes understanding people's needs and motivations, creating a sense of shared purpose, setting clear expectations, providing feedback, and fostering a positive team environment.
It's about creating a culture of collaboration.
Now let's talk about how to handle praise and criticism effectively.
Two sides of the same coin.
Jones emphasizes staying grounded and not letting either praise or criticism go to our heads.
It's about staying balanced.
She suggests using praise as an opportunity to acknowledge accomplishments and reaffirm our commitment to our goals.
It's about staying motivated.
And she recommends using criticism as an opportunity to learn and grow, seeking feedback from trusted sources and focusing on areas where we can improve.
It's about embracing a growth mindset.
Now let's talk about good manners in the workplace.
Manners matter.
She shares a great anecdote about Jimmy Fallon, the talk show host, known for his kindness and respect towards everyone regardless of their status.
It's about treating everyone with respect.
She emphasizes being punctual, respectful of others' time, mindful of our language, and helpful and considerate.
It's about being a good human.
And she delves into the nuances of apologizing.
To apologize or not to apologize.
She emphasizes being sincere in our apologies, acknowledging the harm caused, and taking steps to make amends.
It's about taking responsibility.
But she also suggests avoiding unnecessary apologies, recognizing that they can undermine our authority.
It's about knowing your worth.
Now let's revisit the 80-20 rule, which Jones applies to time management and productivity.
It's all about efficiency.
She suggests identifying the 20% of our activities that produce 80% of our results and delegating, automating, or eliminating the less important 80%.
It's about focusing on what really moves the needle.
And she encourages us to identify our strengths, focus on areas where we excel, and be mindful of the people we spend our time with.
It's about surrounding ourselves with the right people. So much good stuff in there. It's like Jones has given us a whole toolkit for career success.
She really has. And one of the tools I keep coming back to is that idea of focusing on our strengths. Not trying to be good at everything.
Right. It's so liberating. It's like giving yourself permission to excel in the areas where you naturally shine.
Exactly. And it's not about ignoring your weaknesses. It's about recognizing that you can't be all things to all people.
So you play to your strengths, and then you find people who are strong in the areas where you're not.
Exactly. It's about building a team, a network, a community where everyone can contribute their unique talents.
I love that. It's like creating a beautiful mosaic, where each piece is essential to the overall picture.
But even when we're focused on our strengths and we've got a great team around us, there are still going to be times when we hit a wall, when we feel stuck or discouraged.
Oh, absolutely. It's like that post-project slump you were talking about earlier, the big project letdown.
Exactly. It's like you've poured all your energy into this big thing, and then it's over, and you're left feeling kind of empty.
It's like a creativity hangover.
I love that analogy. So what do we do when we find ourselves in that post-project slump?
Well, Jones has some great advice for that. She says, first of all, celebrate your wins. Don't just rush on to the next thing. Take some time to acknowledge what you've accomplished.
It's so important to savor those victories. Give yourself permission to feel proud of what you've achieved.
And then, she says, plan ahead for the post-project phase. What's next on your list? What are you excited about working on?
It's like having something to look forward to. It keeps that momentum going.
And it prevents you from getting stuck in that rut of, now what?
Exactly. It's about keeping your energy and your enthusiasm flowing.
So celebrate rest and then refocus on the next challenge.
And speaking of challenges, Jones also talks about the art of leading without formal authority, which is something so many of us are facing these days, in our matrixed organizations and cross-functional teams.
Right? It's like you're expected to lead, but you don't necessarily have the title or the authority.
It's that herding cats scenario all over again.
So how do we do it? How do we effectively influence and inspire people when we're not officially in charge?
Jones says it starts with building relationships. Get to know the people you're working with. Understand their motivations, what makes them tick.
It's about connecting on a human level, not just a professional level.
And she says find ways to create a shared purpose. Make sure everyone understands the big picture, the why behind the what.
It's like getting everyone rowing in the same direction, even if you're not the one steering the boat.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of positive reinforcement. Recognize and celebrate contributions. Make people feel valued and appreciated.
It's amazing how far a little appreciation can go.
It's like fuel for the soul.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of relationships, shared purpose, positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
But what about when things get tough? When we have to deliver difficult feedback or receive criticism ourselves.
The art of giving and receiving feedback. It's a delicate dance.
So how do we do it gracefully without damaging relationships or letting our egos get bruised?
Jones has some really insightful advice on this. She says, first rule, don't let it go to your head. Whether it's praise or criticism, stay grounded, stay objective.
It's like keeping your ego in check.
Easier said than done, right? But she encourages us to develop a thick skin and not take things personally.
It's about separating the message from the messenger.
Exactly. So when you're receiving praise, use it as an opportunity to acknowledge your accomplishments and reaffirm your commitment to your goals. But don't let it inflate your ego.
It's like a little boost of motivation, but don't let it go to your head.
And when you're receiving criticism, try to see it as an opportunity for growth. What can you learn from this feedback, even if it's not delivered in the most constructive way?
It's about having a growth mindset.
And remember, you don't have to agree with every piece of criticism. Just take what's useful and leave the rest.
It's like panning for gold. You got to sift through the dirt to find the nuggets of wisdom.
Now let's talk about something that might seem a little old-fashioned, but I think it's more important than ever in today's world: good manners.
Manners. Oh, yeah. You mean like saying please and thank you?
It's more than just that. It's about being considerate, respectful of others' time, and mindful of your language.
It's about creating a positive and professional environment.
Jones shares a great anecdote about Jimmy Fallon, the talk show host, who's known for his kindness and respect towards everyone regardless of their status.
I love Jimmy Fallon. He's such a genuinely nice guy.
And Jones says that's not just a personality quirk. It's a deliberate choice he makes. It's part of his brand.
So she's saying that good manners can actually be a strategic advantage.
Absolutely. It's about building relationships, creating a positive impression, making people feel valued.
It's like the old saying, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar.
Exactly. And speaking of things that can be sticky, let's talk about apologizing.
Oh, that's a tricky one. When do we apologize?
Yeah.
And when do we stand our ground?
Jones says it's about finding the right balance. If you've made a genuine mistake, own up to it. Apologize sincerely and take steps to make amends.
It's about taking responsibility for your actions.
But don't over-apologize. She says it can undermine your authority and make you seem less confident.
So apologize when it's warranted, but don't be a doormat.
Exactly. It's about knowing your worth and advocating for yourself.
This whole conversation about manners and apologies makes me think about the importance of emotional intelligence. Being aware of our own emotions and how they impact others.
Jones talks a lot about emotional intelligence. She says it's a crucial skill for anyone who wants to succeed in today's workplace.
It's like being able to read the room, understand the unspoken dynamics, and navigate those complex interpersonal situations.
And she says it's not just about being nice. It's about being strategic, understanding how to leverage your emotions to achieve your goals.
It's like a superpower.
It can be, but like any superpower, it takes practice and self-awareness.
This has been such an insightful conversation. So many great takeaways from Beverly Jones's book.
It really is a must-read for anyone who wants to thrive in today's ever-changing workplace.
I completely agree. It's packed with practical wisdom and actionable advice.
And it's a great reminder that we all have the power to take control of our careers and create the success we desire.
On that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. And until next time, remember to think like an entrepreneur, act like a CEO, and always keep learning.
Thank you for tuning in to the Power Book of Podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join our growing community. Click the bell icon so you never miss an update. We have so much more inspiring content coming your way.